Hi everyone, quick pre-show message from Brady. You might want to have a piece of paper and a pen handy or a spreadsheet or something because we're going to be marking things out of 10 and we'd love you to mark along with us and maybe share your scores later. So Tim, back in episode 60 we discussed an idea called out of 10 where we just marked things out of 10 arbitrarily. Just anything. You remember that obviously.
I do, yes. It's all coming back to me now. Yes.
Yeah, right. And then we recorded a special pilot episode of this, a special version of it not long afterwards, where we actually went through 20 things, 10 from each of us, marked them out of 10, ranked them in order. Fun times. Oh, how we laughed.
I give our laughs an 8 or 9 out of 10
Oh, yeah.
for that episode.
So anyway, a lot of people said they enjoyed that episode and have asked us to do it again. And we are men of the people. We listen. We've responded and we've decided we're going to do it again. So Tim's come up with 10 things. I've come up with 10 things. We're going to go through them, mark them out of 10. I don't know what Tim has picked. Tim doesn't know what I have picked. It's all going to be a surprise. We'll discuss them. We will rate them. We will rank them. We're all about the hierarchy here.
I've actually got 12 now. I'm looking down my list. So
Well, you can only have 10.
go along. The only trouble is I'll only know the 2 duds after I've said them. So
And we're not going to mark them out of 12, all right? Don't go getting any ideas. Don't change the format.
All right. I'm pretty happy with my list. Right now, looking at your list, what would you give it out of 10?
Well, I'm happy with my list. Let me ask you how you made your list. Were you making it with the podcast in mind, like, oh, this will make for a fun chat? Or did you make it thinking, I'm genuinely interested in what Brady thinks of this? Or, like, what was your criteria for pulling the list together?
I sat on the couch and I said to one of my daughters, we're doing that 10 thing again. And she goes, oh, yeah. And I said, remind me, what was some of the ones from last? And she listed off a whole bunch of them from last. I was like, that's right. That's great. That's fantastic. So she has a phenomenal brain for our episodes, and many of the details are archived away.
Right.
So then I had literally the closest piece of paper that I had was an envelope. So I've literally written on the back of an envelope.
Nice.
Leaning on a novel with a pen, sitting on the couch, and I just looked up at the roof and went, and then wrote them down.
All right.
A few suggestions came, and one of them is incorporated from this daughter. Alongside, I must say, a dare. There is a dare. You know how they often put a secret word that I have to put in? I do have a secret word, but it's actually framed as a dare. And maybe I'll let you know what the dare is if I manage to pull it off during the episode right at the end. But
all right. Well, I think everyone listening knows by now that you're going to forget, but good on you for at least having the spirit at the start.
Well, that's right. It'll be in the epilogue, obviously. But bonus bit at the end that we have to record because I've forgotten. But
all right.
We'll see how I go.
Who's going to go first? Who's going to throw the first one out there?
You.
Tim, I want a mark out of 10 for belly buttons. Some people are really repulsed by them. I know people that can't even bear to look at them. Other people might have different attitudes to them. I want to know where you stand on belly buttons.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of belly buttons. Oh, yeah. No, I think they're great.
Here lies Tim Hine. He was a huge fan of belly buttons.
They feel nice. They tickle. Oh, yeah. No, I think they're hilarious.
Hilarious.
They're an amusing part of the body. You know, the idea... just firstly, the whole miracle around how they come to be that, you know, I've grown up my whole life to say the doctor just tied a knot and there you are. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And I've looked at that knot. And then every time I've blown up a balloon and I've gone and you have to try and tie a knot, which is one of life's toughest challenges ever to tie a balloon. I tie it and I always think, oh man, and imagine a doctor has to do this for life. Like
Before all the air blows out of the baby.
That's right. That's right. We're just going to deflate. So I like that sort of, their origin story is amazing, how they come to be. Then they're just sort of tucked in there, a little bit of the belly that's sort of tucked in. I find them really amusing and quirky and funny. I think they're marvellous.
All right.
They're wonderful for collecting and gathering crumbs. If you like...
Fluff and lint.
Fluff and lint, depending if you're wearing a shirt or not when you're eating your toast. I might get a shirt with a belly button on the front. I think it's so great.
Just a hole cut there so you can still catch the crumbs.
So you can catch the real belly button underneath.
Don't get me wrong, I see the cute side of belly buttons, but I think belly buttons can also be a bit sexy.
Oh, hello.
Don't you? Yeah. Well, I mean, not yours probably, but...
Not mine.
No.
Can I tell you a story? I grew up believing that my dad had 3 belly buttons. He
He was like the Tatooine of belly buttons, like in Star Wars with the 2 suns. 3 belly buttons.
That's right.
You used to just stare looking at them with the Luke Skywalker music playing in the background.
He was, in fact, their homes on Star Wars are a bit like big belly buttons in the surface, aren't they, of Tatooine? Because they're sort of big holes with them down there. But Dad had a heart operation, like open heart surgery, when I was about 3.5 or so, and because he had a massive heart attack. So then they sewed him up afterwards, and so they had this massive zipper down the front of his chest, which was amazing. Like Dad had a zipper sort of scar, and then associated with the bits as well, just above his belly button. Like if you imagine on the belly button is a nose, it's like 2 little eyes just above it. So it was just like like this funny little face looking out. But I used to love to say my dad has 3 belly buttons.
The Man with 3 Belly Buttons would be a good episode title. What are you going to give belly buttons out of 10?
I feel like I can't go with a 10 early because it leaves me nowhere to go. So I need to think of something negative about them in order to...
You do get some not nice ones.
I would say, well, let me preface this by saying, look, I like my belly button, but I don't really like other male belly buttons. so I'm going to take a couple of scores off for all the men out there and their belly buttons, and give an 8 out of 10.
An 8. I mean, that's roughly half the world's belly buttons you've dissed there, but all right.
Yes, well, don't take it personally, everyone. But
do animals have belly buttons? They must. Where are animal belly buttons? Because obviously there's no one to tie a knot, but they must have umbilical cords. What happens to animal belly buttons?
They must do.
It's just fun saying belly button, isn't it?
It's funny that there's no more technical name that's thrown around and used as commonly.
Well, there's navel.
Is that the general area, or is it specifically what it is, the navel?
I think the actual whole part is called the navis.
Right.
I've made that up.
Oh, did you?
It was funnier in my head than when I said it out loud.
But I was just going to believe it, hook, line and sinker. I love that belly button, which is 2 words and, with a hyphen. Like it's a longer word than, like navel's so easy to say, but we go with belly button. And even doctors refer to it as your belly button. And it's such a just funny term. Belly button. It's not even a button, is it? Why isn't it called your, your stomach knot or your, you know what I mean? Your tummy tie or something else. What are you going to give the belly button?
I'm gonna give the belly button 7.6.
Oh, very specific. Well, I guess you've had time to think about it.
No, I just like using all the decimal points so we get more granularity in our rankings. You're more a round number kind of guy.
Well, I went with 8.0.
Yeah. All right then. Which gives the belly button an average of 7.8, which ranks it just above Milo from our last episode. And just below the big rocking horse.
We still love the big rocking horse. More than belly buttons. Maybe if the big rocking horse had a belly button, it'd be a 10.
The belly button has already gone to number 4 on our all-time list.
Well, it's been around a while. My turn. Okay, my first item on the list that I would like you to score out of 10 is the iPod. Do you remember the iPod?
Yes, the original iPod.
Some listeners may only know the iPad or the iPhone, but predating them is the iPod, which I think was... Well, let me not talk about it. Let me defer to you. I won't influence your score. What score would you give the iPod?
I remember when I first heard of the iPod, I just moved to England and my brother-in-law was about to buy one and was telling me about it. And he was saying it can play music. And I was like, oh, yeah, cool. So it's a bit like a cassette player. And he said, yeah, but it can store data. It doesn't even have to just be music. It could store like, just information, like a hard drive. And I just couldn't see the point of it. I thought it was the most pointless invention. I was like, I can't see really the usefulness of this. But then when he got one, he got the one, had the click wheel and a screen, I did think, this is the future, this is cool. And obviously it led to so much. So it's obviously an item of historic importance as well. Let me hear what you think of the iPod before I give it a score.
I'm a big fan of the iPod. I lament its passing. I think it's one of the great inventions of history, and it's a shame that it's lasted such a short amount of time compared to the vinyl album or CDs or cassettes. I think it's marvellous. Its genius was first revealed to me one day when I went to the gym, and for some weird reason, like I took my Walkman, my old Walkman, which had Guns N' Roses sticker on it, and I'd had for like 15 years or something. And I didn't just take one cassette. For some reason, I took like several cassettes with me to the gym. So I had one playing in the Walkman, but then I took like a couple of spares in case I wanted to listen to those albums instead.
Yeah.
So I remember being on the running machine, and what are they called? A
Treadmill.
A running treadmill. Very good. Yes.
Yeah.
And I was running along and decided to change cassettes like while I was running on this album. So I open up the Walkman, click it out, take the cassette out, sit it on something, reach over, pull out another cassette, open the cover, try and get in, and then drop it, and boom, it flies off the gym.
Off the back of the
and I slow the thing down and have to go back and retrace. And I just remember looking up at other people in the gym and them looking at me shaking their head and I realized, why have I brought my whole sort of tape collection to the gym?
Yeah.
And then seeing someone with an iPod and going, that's genius. That's what I need. I need one of those.
You looked over to the treadmill next to you, and there was some guy changing a record on a record player that he had balanced on the handle. Do you know why the iPod was also so much needed? Because when CDs overtook cassettes, you started getting those Discmen, and Discmen were never good. They were never a good shape.
Yeah.
And also, they also, a lot of the time, weren't very good at being moved and rocked. So the iPod was necessary.
I had a Discman, but for that very reason, I didn't take it to the gym. I actually went looking and found my Walkman. I thought, I'll take the Walkman. This is the way. This is the way of the future.
The more interesting thing to me is, what is this incredibly small window of time when you were suddenly going to the gym all the time? I've never known this part of your life.
That's the bit of the story that's unbelievable.
The true story was you were in KFC changing cassettes and you couldn't do it with your greasy fingers.
That's right. It's like, hang on, I need an iPod. Yeah, I loved it. I bought it, had it for years and years until I had an iPhone. I thought it was fantastic. It was great. You didn't have to worry about Wi-Fi and all those sorts of things and data and things. It was just all on there from the laptop, and loads of songs in your pocket. It was wonderful. I give it a 9. I think the iPod gets a 9 from me. What about you?
I would have given an 8, but I'm going to take off 1 point just because Apple's so far up its own arse and give it a 7, which gives it an average of 8, just above the belly button.
Wow.
Yeah. Even better than the big rocking horse. Who would have thought the iPod was a better invention than the big rocking horse?
Who would have thought?
But it is below Tom Cruise on our list. Tom Cruise is still better than the iPod.
But that's only Tom Cruise in Top Gun, though, isn't that right? Not Tom Cruise. Cruise generally.
All right.
Do you know what would have happened if Apple were in charge of the belly buttons? They would have repositioned it by now. It'd be on the back instead of the front.
Yeah.
Like they did with the headphone jacks. Yeah.
Yeah, they would have changed the shape. I don't have a belly button. I connected to my mum through Bluetooth. All right.
Very good.
Next on my list, I don't know if you've been to this place, is the city of Paris.
Yes, I have, yeah.
That's all right, then that puts you in an even stronger position to rate the city of Paris out of 10.
Law. I have only been to Paris once, I think. I went with some friends. We went on the train through the Channel, from London. We had a fantastic time. having just been there for a few days, all you do is the really wonderful, fun stuff. So I can't not rate it really high. We went to the Louvre, you know what I mean? All the typical things. We went to Notre Dame. I went to Shakespeare and Co. bookshop and bought a book and all the things, that you kind of do in Paris. You sort of eat and find your way around, went to Versailles, had a fantastic time. I think it's one of the funnest 3 days of my life. It was with my wife and with some friends.
Yeah.
Oh, what was a reason not to give it a 10? Probably that it just... So that's just my experience of it. I have to say it was pretty dirty. It was way... Like the subway and so forth was far dirtier than New York.
That is a complaint a lot of people have about Paris. They find it a bit dirty and smelly. It's never been a big complaint of mine, but I have heard it before.
It doesn't detract from it in a sense because it's an old city. So you're not expecting it to be up to scratch, but it is the more modern things that look run down, whereas obviously the cobbled streets just look ancient and wonderful. And if they have, you know what I mean, some dirt everywhere, who cares? But gosh, it's hard to score out of 10.
I think Paris is one of the greatest cities in the world in all ways. I think it's got almost everything going for it. It's very beautiful. It's got a great selection of top shelf landmarks, your Eiffel Towers, Arc de Triomphes.
I literally forgot about the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah. I think it's got so much going for it. The sort of ceremonial part in the centre where the Champs-Élysées is and all the famous museums is very walkable, which is nice. But it also has, suburbs and further out areas. I think it's got a bit of everything. I know Parisian people have a reputation for being a bit rude. I have not particularly found that myself in all the times I've been there.
No. Quite the opposite, yeah.
I think it's probably in my top 3 best cities in the world, and I'm going to give it 8.9.
Well, I'll go a bit further. I'll say 9.1.
Okay.
You've been to more cities than me, so yours is perhaps a more informed view, but I thought it was blissful. One of my daughters is also obsessed by it and is longing to go there and has multiple pictures of the Eiffel Tower and is a bit of a Francophile from afar. So that sort of endears it to us as well. We can't wait to get there. And we were planning to go before COVID and all the rest of it. So it also feels like somehow it feels small as well. Like it feels, like you said, you can walk everywhere. It feels like a small city, even though it obviously is vast and goes on and on and on.
Excellent. That's an 8.9 and a 9.1 for an average of 9. Rating it above Tom Cruise, surpassed only by Halley's Comet.
I thought it was important for us to fit in a Tom Hanks film here at some stage. And I was thinking, which Tom Hanks film sort of calls forth a strong opinion? And I'm going to go with, and so I wanted you to rate for me the film Catch Me If You Can.
Oh, okay.
Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. What do you think
We
of
did
Catch Me If You
Castaway
Can?
last time, by the way. In the last episode, we did Castaway. So this time, Catch Me If You Can. Now, I've only seen this once. This is the one where he pretends to be a pilot, isn't it? What was the real pilot's name? Frank Abagnale or something was the guy, wasn't it? The character.
Very good. Or is it Frank the Father, maybe?
So this is the film where Leonardo DiCaprio plays like a guy who pretends to be a pilot and he's a bit of a fraudster and forges checks, and Tom Hanks is the investigator trying to catch this crook on the run. It's hard because I've only seen it once and it was so long ago. The fact I haven't gone back to it, I thought it was very middle of the road, that film. Very middle. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio is quite a charismatic actor, and I remember him being pretty charismatic in this film. And it had some funny moments. I thought it was one of Tom Hanks's more average meh efforts. He wasn't particularly memorable in it. He was very much a straight man. So I don't think it got the best out of Tom. I'm going to give this film 6.5.
Right. Well, for me, I would, after first viewing, have agreed with you because this is a film that has grown in my estimation with repeated viewings. And I find myself thinking about it from time to time. It's really stuck with me. I thought at first it was just a medium sort of feel, this is quite good. And there's really that relied on the quirks of the fact that he's able to pretend to be a doctor and pretend to be a pilot. And that's just, and there's the sort of the golden thread that it's kind of based on a true story as well, which makes it a bit more amazing too. As I've watched it a few more times, I've, largely because I've just stumbled across it on TV, I think it's a really marvellous film. And I think a couple of reasons come to mind. One is Firstly, I really don't like Leonardo DiCaprio as an actor. I think he looks like kind of a man-child and doesn't look convincing when he plays adult characters. So I like that in this film, he's actually playing a young guy pretending to be an old person. So it's kind of in some ways his quintessential character. I like that. So I do actually like him in it because he's pretending to be older than he is. The main reason, though, is I think it really works the way that he's trying to... the insecurity of his father who never achieved what he wanted to, and the pressure he puts on his son. And so his son pretends to be doing great things, and his father knows that he's not really, but he goes along with it. So they live in this sort of delusion of greatness. And I think that's really interesting and really insightful, a dynamic between fathers and sons. And I like the fun bits, how it plays out and how he gets so close to catching him. And I won't spoil it in case folks haven't seen it, but it's a really intriguing film that's grown in my estimation. And it's grown enough to be about a 7.8 for me.
Done. 7.8. That's an average of 7.15. Please don't let it be above Castaway. It's not. 7.15, and we gave Castaway 7.4.
All right.
All right. Nice. Next on my list, I've got a food for you.
Yeah.
I want you to rate corn on the cob.
Oh, that's a good one. Corn
Just
on
a
the
nice,
cob.
a nice hot corn on the cob. Maybe a bit of melted butter and salt rubbed over
A
it.
lot of melted butter is what you meant to say.
Let's
I
be
imagine.
honest.
Yeah.
Lots of butter. Yeah.
Corn on the cob is one of those foods that you never know you're in the mood for until it's put down in front of you, and then you're like, you give it a standing ovation and dive in. Like,
Why do we not have this more often? This is amazing.
this is amazing, and it sort of goes with anything. No matter what you're having, it's like, hang on, what's that down the end of the table? Oh, here we go. This is fantastic. It's easy to cook, steam.
I think the things that go against it, it's not that easy to prepare because it's quite cumbersome. It's quite big. And also it has a lot of volume and weight for how much actual food you get off it.
Yes.
It's a bit like lobster in that way, where you see a lobster and you think, oh, this is going to be the greatest meal of all time, and then you spend hours with a pair of tweezers trying to get some meat out of it. Corn on the cob is a little bit like, oh my god, this is so much food, and then you eat it and you're like, oh, there's still this huge big cob left behind that I'm getting no pleasure from.
But you know what I love doing is using that cob to clean the plate of gravy and then suck all the gravy out of the cob.
It's the only sponge that it's acceptable to suck all the juice out of. Yes, that's true. How thorough are you with leaving individual corn kernels on the cob? Like if there's one yellow one there where you think, okay, you're lucky you got away with it, or do you come back for a second swoop and like, nah, you're all going?
No. It's all perfectly clean. I couldn't possibly. I'm tempted, if people leave some on their plates, I'm tempted to reach across and go, I'm sorry, ma'am, you can't just leave that mess there. It looks all untidy. You've got to clean them perfectly. Yeah, got to do the full typewriter action across, back and forward, back and forward.
There are also two different types of people in the way they eat it. Let's assume they're going to eat all the kernels, right? They're going to eat all the yellow bits. There are people that eat them and then the cob looks like it's almost been shaved with a razor. And there are others who just leave lots of fluffiness, lots of that kind of membrane that holds that So there are obviously two different styles of eating the corn that are going down here. This one that leaves behind a big fluffy cob and the ones that leave behind this razor fine cob.
There are also those psychopaths who stand it on its end with a knife and shave off the corn first and then eat it with a spoon, which I think is crazy behaviour.
You should just be buying a tin of sweet corn if you're going to do that.
That's right. I know, but I've seen it done. I've seen it done in my own house. Yes.
That's an abomination.
I know.
All right. All right. What are we going to give a corn on a cob out of 10 then?
So this is not corn generally. This is a corn on the cob, with a bit of butter on it, eating it in front of me.
Yeah. Corn on the cob as a side, as a side with your meal.
Yeah. Look, I'd give it a 7.9. I'll say. How's that? To vary a little bit.
Yep.
It feels like an 8. Oh. But you only have one, and you only have it every now. Yeah, 7.9. Yeah,
and it is, and it gets between your teeth, and like I talked about, it's cumbersome to cook. It's a lot of weight in your basket, in your shopping basket for how much food you get.
Don't they make iPhones out of corn Corn goes into all sorts of things, doesn't it? But
I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm gonna go 7.7. 7.7 for me. Can you imagine having just corn on the cob just as your meal, like having 5 cobs, like someone just serving up a plate going, there you go, there's dinner. It's just corn on the cob. Just work your way through that. The other thing we haven't talked about, of course, is the digestion issues with corn on the cob. Sometimes it makes its way through the system reasonably intact.
oh, right. I've not done that level of research myself, but that's great that you have.
No, well, if we give Audrey, our chihuahua, a little bit of corn, she sometimes has it, and then when you have to pick up her poopies later on, you'll get corny poos.
Ah. Like when my beanbag exploded as a kid and my dog ate the little beans inside. Yeah. It would be fun to have a beanbag just full of corn. Hey, did you ever have at home those little forky things that go in the end? Those tiny forks, you prick them in each end to hold them?
Yes. They've kind of gone out of fashion, it feels like. I would never think to have them anymore, but there was a time back in the sort of the 90s where you had to have them. I remember we had 2 types as well. We had these yellow ones that had 2 metal spikes on the end, almost like pins, and they would very easily go in. And we also had these plastic ones where the bit you were sticking in was just a quite broad piece of plastic, and that never slid into the edges of the corn quite as well as the thin metal pins.
No, that doesn't sound like good design. We had the pins.
And were the handles little mini corns, or were they other things? Were they like windmills or something? Because your dad
No, they were just plastic. And I bet you $1 billion if I went over to my mum's and opened her drawer, they would be in there, several of them. An odd number, obviously, 5, but because one would have got lost. But it's the sort of thing she would still have in her cutlery drawer.
Well, interestingly, corn on the cob scored 7.8, exactly the same as the belly button.
Oh, wow. A piece of corn being one of the things that can often find itself into the belly button if you're eating without your shirt on.
What kind of frenzy of eating are you doing? I'll tell you one thing, you need to eat more often with your shirt on, that's for sure.
I'm the Anthony Kiedis of dinner time.
All right, what do you got?
I'm going to ask you to judge my beard.
Ooh, as it stands right now.
Yep.
I'm liking the beard on you.
You can be honest. You can be honest.
No. I am being honest. What you think? You think I spare your feelings? I'm liking the beard on you. It's kind of a bit scraggy, but I kind of think that works. And it sort of matches your haircut at the moment. The sort of the scraggy unkemptness of it is matching what you're doing with your hair. You could probably do a little bit of maintenance in the neck area, but that's a hard area to conquer when doing the beard, knowing how because if you do it too neat and have 2 neat lines around your neck, it kind of looks a bit, I don't know, it looks a bit weird. So you do need to get the right level of. It's a bit like the undone shirt and the tie draped over your shoulders jazz singer we discussed last episode. A beard is a hard thing to look like you're not trying too hard, but you are getting it right. There's a few patches that could do with a bit more hair, but
There are definitely some patches. Like if I was colouring in a picture of myself to have a beard, I would be colouring a bit more darker in a few areas. I don't mean it's grey. I quite like it. When it gets a bit longer, there's a bit of grey in it, and I quite like that. I just mean it's not even. There's some patchy bits in different places.
I'm going to give your beard 7.
All right.
That's a good mark.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
What are you giving your beard, more importantly?
Well, I give it a 10, obviously. I look fabulous.
You're giving it a 10?
No. I like having the beard. I love not shaving. I like being a bit scruffy. I kind of like that as well. I'll give it a 6. It could be a lot better. There's a lot better beards around. I think yours is much better. You've got a real Ewan McGregor kind of thing going on there. But
thanks, man.
But
I don't know about that. But that means your beard has scored exactly the same score, 6.5, as the Beverly Hills 90210 graduation episode, which somehow feels right.
Well, there we go. Yeah, that's it.
You have the Beverly Hills 90210 graduation episode of beards.
I was just saying in the hairdresser yesterday, she was saying, would you like me to trim your... Oh, I see you've got a 90210. I went, yep. goes, that's looking very 90210. I was like, well, thank you.
Here's the next one from me. This is going to be hard for you to rate because you're in Adelaide, so you don't see this very often. But I want a mark out of 10 for rain.
Rain, yeah. Look, I do like rain. Yes, we've had a bit last week in particular. But you're right. We're in the driest city in the driest continent on Earth, as they say. So we don't see a lot of it. So generally when it comes, that means we're happy to see it. It's very welcome. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It has I love the smell in the air just before rain comes, particularly on the asphalt and the road and stuff. That's the smell of rain is like the smell of renewal. It's good. I quite like riding in the rain or running in the rain, walking in the rain. That feels quite exhilarating. I know that it's a good thing. Like everyone's, farmers and a lot of people rely on it. So that's I'm a big fan of rain. It's sometimes annoying. So I guess that takes off a little bit. Look, I'd give rain 9.5.
Wow.
Hang on a second. We had... it can be a bit annoying with... Yeah, no. I was just thinking about we had a small leak on the side of our apartment. It turns out there's just a light fitting that wasn't well sealed to the wall, but that was sealed and it's all fixed and there's no great problem. And it's not the rain's fault. It's the seal that, had worn down. So I shouldn't hold it against the rain.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm a big fan of rain as well. I'm a big fan of rain. More often when I'm inside, but there are a few nicer feelings than being on holiday and being in some cottage or something and a big storm comes in and you hear the rain smashing the roof and you're rugged up inside with a nice big quilt or something like that. Oh, yeah. And also now that I have, a garden of my own, a house with a garden, I get that grown-up pleasure you get of seeing your plants outside, drinking the rain, thinking, oh, good for the garden, good for the plants. There are two things I don't like about rain. One is quite similar to you. Because I live in quite an old house, it can be susceptible to intrusion. And sometimes there's that feeling that, I hope there's no leak anywhere. I hope this isn't going to breach the house and end up costing me a lot of time and money. And the only other problem with rain is when it interrupts cricket, because you can't play cricket in the rain. And so, if you're like really excited about settling in for watching a big day of cricket, and then you see them pull the covers out over the pitch, and you think there's not going to be any cricket today. Yeah, that's a real bummer.
Or the Grand Prix a few weeks ago. Grand Prix was pretty much abandoned. They did have a couple of races. But
that's true. A Grand Prix abandoned because of rain is bad, but a Grand Prix raced in the rain is the best. So
yes. just enough for them to start it is just what we want.
Rain in Formula One is a good thing. So
that's true.
So. And rain does cause a lot of hardship for people, and the parts of England, particularly parts of England I'm close to, you get a lot of flooding when it rains, and that can cause a lot of... I actually have a recurring dream, and it just occurred to me. I had this dream last night. It came back to me just then. Maybe I had it because it rained here a lot last night, so I was hearing the rain. But I have a recurring dream that my house is flooding from the bottom floor up, and it can sometimes go up a few floors, and I have to swim underwater to go to the floors down below and look around. So flooding is quite an anxiety-inducing thing. So I'm gonna dock off some points off rain for that, and I'm gonna give rain 8.1.
Did I give you a score? 9.5, wasn't it?
Yeah, you gave rain 9.5 for a total of 8.8, which is a very high score, above Tom Cruise. We will include links to the scorecards and everything in the show notes, by the way.
Yes.
If you want to go and check things out afterwards, but you might not want to look early because of spoilers.
And comparing your own scores. Netflix. What do you think of Netflix?
You're catching me at a good time because I've been enjoying a few Netflix shows lately. Sex Education I've been enjoying. I really enjoyed Squid Game. You're catching me at a Netflix high. My only real complaint about Netflix is sometimes they shove things down your throat a bit and show you trailers a bit too often and start the next show a bit quickly. They're a little bit greedy in that way. But I think Netflix is kicking goals at the moment, and I'm going to give it an 8.
Wow. I think if we had a snapshot of Netflix when we were young, and to get a film we had to go down to the video store and pay $6 and bring the cassette home and play it, and I think we would our brains would explode with excitement that we can sit at home and there's just hundreds and hundreds of television series and films. So I think to some degree, from the perspective of me as a kid, it's like a 10. It's unbelievable. There's a couple of things that I find annoying on the main menu. Like, you just turn it on and you're flicking through. There's usually advertising at the top, and that's got sound. So some stupid drama is blaring at me when I'm flicking around. So I have to mute the TV before I go browsing.
You mean advertising for their other shows, not advertising for
That's right.
Coca-Cola?
No, indeed.
Yeah.
The other thing I find annoying is that they use different images than the traditional movie poster as the icon for the film.
They also change them really often.
They do.
It's to make the screen seem fresh, I think, and not the same movies all the time, because they change them all the time.
I think that's true, but I don't like it. I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I'm like, oh, what's that doing there? That doesn't seem right. I would like the traditional movie poster. But that's a sort of a personal choice and so forth.
Yeah.
I find their range a bit limiting. So it trends towards, a Hollywood and America, and I'd like to see some different kinds of international stuff. But that sounds a bit pretentious to say. And there are other streaming places that I go to for that. So from the eyes of a kid looking at it, I think Netflix is an 8.5.
And that's what you're going to go with? An 8.5? You got it. All right. A mark out of 10 for the planet Mercury in the solar system.
Now, Mercury is one of the only two between us and the sun. Is that right?
It is, yes. It's the nearest to the sun. It's nearer to the sun than Venus.
And that's all I know about it.
That's all you know about it. Do you know what it looks like, or what it looks like physically?
Well, it looks like a little red dot on a picture. I don't know specifically. Like, if you showed me all the planets in a police lineup, I couldn't pick it out.
It looks a lot like the moon. It's a very barren, grey, rocky, small sphere with lots of craters on it. And I think Mercury is a bit of an unsung hero, because all the glamour of the planets usually goes to ones that are further away, because partly because I think they're further away and distant and mysterious. And the thing I like about Mercury is I feel it's a bit like it's hiding in plain sight. Because it's hiding in the glare of the sun, we kind of have forgotten about it and neglected it for a long time. Only now we're starting to send probes there and go and have a closer look at it. And when you're playing hide and seek, like, there are people that will go into really far away and complicated hiding places, and they're hard to find. But there'll always be some genius that will hide just like a meter away from you, like in a really in a place you'd never think to look because it was so obvious. And I think they're like the kings of hide and seek. And I think Mercury's a bit like that. It's kind of like it's hiding in this really cool place, like right near us, but near the sun. And it's quite cool because when it transits the sun, we get to see it in quite a cool way that we don't get to see other planets other than Venus. You see this black dot transiting, and it played a key role in understanding relativity, because observations of it were very important in science. I think it's like an unsung hero, and I think it's making a comeback. And I'm going to give Mercury 8.4.
What do you think of the name Mercury?
Well, Mercury was the messenger, wasn't he? And he moved very quickly, and that's why it's named, because it's the one that moves the fastest across the sky. Mercury's the fastest moving planet, because the closer you are to the sun, the quicker you do your orbits. So Mercury's a very fast moving planet. So I think it's a very appropriate name. It obviously causes a lot of confusion with the element Mercury, the metal, but that's not Mercury's fault. I think it's a pretty cool name. I've already forgotten the score I gave it. What did I give it? 8.4, was it?
Oh, I find it hard to judge, because I feel like I'm judging someone that I've not met. I don't know a lot about Mercury. The picture of Mercury I have in my mind is of when we had the planets all sort of hanging from the roof at school. Full respect for being that close to the sun all the time. I mean, that's pretty hot. I mean, talking about, there's no rain. So
endless summer.
No, that's right. Lucky. I mean, it must look forward to nighttime every day.
The night side of Mercury is incredibly cold because it hasn't got an atmosphere to like a blanket to keep the planet insulated. So actually, when you're facing away from the sun, it's still quite cold.
Really? Even though it's that close? Oh, wow. So you could stand sort of somewhere in between and it'd be quite comfortable.
You'd have a big sunburn on one side of your face, a very severe sunburn, and the other side would be frozen off.
Look, Mercury. I'm going to have to go with probably just a 7. I'm pretty indifferent, to be honest.
Well, that's very generous of you in the circumstances.
No, 6.5 then. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Mercury, I just cost you half a point. Which gives Mercury a total of 7.45, ranking it just below Thursday, the day.
I'm going to go with something quite vast. I would like for you to rate out of 10 art.
Oh, gosh. Now, I'm going to give it a low mark, right?
What?
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad art, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of art that's dragging the rest of it down. Because obviously art is incredibly vast, and there's a lot of art I really like. I consider some parts of what I do to be a form of art. And, you know, and movies and things like that I quite like are an art form, and there's some paintings I like. But there is also just a whole culture around art. And I'm a big advocate of art, by the way, and I'm a big advocate of government money being spent on it. And, you know, I think the arts are really important. And I will always fight for the arts to be given an important status. But a lot of it doesn't speak to me. I don't know.
What have you got in your mind when I say art? Like, what is there a painting or a person or
just like posy people in the backyard making weird sculptures and like, you know,
wearing skivvies?
Yeah. I think art is the reason for humans to exist, right? Like the creativity and the creation of artistic things is the most important thing humans do. I do believe that. And people who say we shouldn't spend money on the arts and we should spend more of it on science and medicine and things like that, I say the reason that medicine exists and medical care exists isn't just so we can live longer and have more heartbeats. It's so we can live longer to do things like art. So I'm 100% for art, but like any huge endeavour, like religion, for example, you know, there's a lot of bad people in religion that give religion a bad name. Art has that too. I'm going to give art. I'm going to give art 6.8. I just gave all of art a 6.8.
Wow. So you rate Tom Cruise in Top Gun higher than art?
Well, that is art, but yeah. What are you going to give art? How do you even mark art?
He's obviously not dragging art down.
No.
Oh, dear. It feels like all the good art is inaccessible and is attached to things like pretension, and all the bad art, well, it's just bad. So it's so art as a whole gets a bad rap because of artists. But you're right, and it's right at the heart of human endeavour.
And the way it commingles with money has become quite weird too, you know, the value of art, and it's all a bit corrupted, but still interesting. Go on then. Work me towards your mark.
I should have thought about my score beforehand. I just thought it was a good thing to try and rate, which it is. Why wouldn't I give it a 10? I think that even bad attempts of art are often genuine, and so I'm going to do a bit better than you. I'm going to give art a 9. I'm just going to take off 1 point for the Limp Bizkit albums and rubbish like that get coughed up out of humanity every now and then.
-1 for Coldplay. That means art scores 7.9.
No, that sounds about right.
That puts art just below the Big Rocking Horse in Gumaraka.
One of the great sculptures of modern art.
Yeah. But above the belly button.
Well, the belly button's a work of art as well.
Episodes like this are not possible without our sponsors, and today we want to thank Storyblocks.
Yes.
Storyblocks.com/unmade is the place to go for their incredible demand-driven library of entirely royalty-free 4K and HD footage, After Effects and Premiere Pro templates, music, images, sound effects. It never ends. They've got subscriptions for any budget, including their unlimited all-access plan, which gives you, as the name suggests, unlimited downloads Check it out, storyblocks.com/unmade. Whatever you're creating, we've just been talking about the importance of art. If you're creating something artistic, what better thing to have than access to this incredible library of all sorts of media? I use Storyblocks all the time in my creations, whether it's YouTube videos, podcasts. You really should be checking them out. You agree with that, don't you, Tim?
I do. There's barely anything that we've mentioned that wouldn't have audio or video or images of on Storyblocks.
I was actually just looking at images of belly buttons on Storyblocks before we started. Yeah. And they've got a decent selection of belly buttons of all ranges. Young, old, hairy.
They are funny.
What else have we talked about in today's episode so far that would make good Storyblocks? Corn on the cob. Let's call up corn on the cob on Storyblocks. I'm typing it in. Oh, look at that. Mouth-watering, beautifully shot videos. I'll have them on the screen at the moment if you're watching on YouTube. Wow.
I remember KFC doing corn on the cob at one stage.
I bet they didn't do it as well as Storyblocks. I was not expecting such an impressive range of corn on the cob videos. If you are making a documentary about corn on the cob and you have not subscribed to Storyblocks, you are missing a trick.
Storyblocks is the Netflix of everything that's not on Netflix.
They're great. They're great. They're a great supporter of the show, and they're a fantastic resource for anyone who's doing anything creative. So check them out. Storyblocks.com/unmade. 10 out of 10 for them. Storyblocks.com/unmade. All right. CocaCola.
Oh, this is a bit of a dilemma.
Where do you stand on Coca-Cola?
I very rarely drink Coca-Cola, but every now and then I do, and it's friggin' unbelievable.
Well, then why do you not drink it more often?
Well, because it's full of sugar, and
Yeah.
I have some ethical questions about the company.
Okay.
To be honest.
Yeah.
And
That's all part
the
of it. That's all part of
commodification
it.
and so forth. So if I get one, which sometimes, I guess it will be in. I get a Coke no sugar, so there's no sugar. But I know
Coke Zero is
apparently
what?
something
Coke
else.
Zero is my Coke of choice at the moment. I prefer Coke Zero to Diet Coke. I think it's nicer.
Yeah, yeah. They don't call it Coke Zero over here anymore. They call it Coke no sugar. But what I tend to do is if I'm ordering, like a meal at Macca's and they say, what drink do you want? I usually say, I'll have a Coke no zero. So I've turned into that dad that messes up the name.
Right.
No. Look, I can't have too much of it. I have a little bit and it's pretty amazing. It's like a hit. I guess it's just the sugar hit and, it tastes good. But a whole can is a lot. I wouldn't have it twice in a day, so that brings it down a little bit. And I do have ethical issues, so I'm going to give it a 5.
Okay. I mean, I feel bad giving it a high score after, you've been Mr. Worthy over there.
Yeah, I know. Mr. Wet Blanket.
And I don't want to go too high because it is it is just a soft drink and a big multinational company. But I do drink a lot of it. It brings me pleasure, an ice cold Coke from the can hitting the back of your throat. I'm going to give Coke 7.
Look, it's no iced coffee, but
Farmers Union iced coffee.
it is nice.
Yeah. So that means Coca-Cola has scored the same as Australia's Parliament House from our previous episode.
I imagine there's a heck of a lot of Coke that is consumed inside the Parliament House.
Yeah.
That place would run on caffeine.
All right. What have you got for us next?
I'm going to stay in the culinary department and ask you, fish, like cooked fish as a meal. How do you rate fish? Do you ever order fish off the menu? What fish do you like? But fish generally.
I like fish. I think fish is nice to eat. But ordering fish or cooking fish is very, very high risk for what you're going to get. You don't know if what they bring out to you is going to be delicious and one of the best meals you've ever had, or a bit tasteless or not very nice. You don't know what it's going to look like. Is it going to have bones? It's too unpredictable. It's too risky. And when you're at a restaurant, the one thing you don't want to do is order the wrong meal and look at everyone else's meal and think, oh, I got the dud. And I think if you order fish, there's a high risk of getting the dud. And it's very rare that I'll be at a restaurant with a group of people and we'll all order our different meals, and so one person will order fish, and I'll look at the person who ordered fish and think, oh, I really wish I had that. I don't often get food envy at the person that ordered fish. I don't often cook fish at home. The only fish I reliably like, and it's still something I don't order that often, is like fish and chips, fried battered fish with chips, which is, classic meal, and you can't go wrong there. But that's because it's fried, and anything fried is good. So
That's right. I actually didn't think of that, but yeah, I rate fish and chips way higher than I rate fish. But yeah,
so I'm going to rate fish as a meal, like eating fish, 4.5.
Whoa.
Yep, that's not counting prawns. Prawns are my favourite food. So prawns would be a 9. Prawns would be a 9, but fish in general, I'm thinking of like conventional fish here, and I'm going a 4.5.
I think fish fall into that category that I eat to feel worthy, like righteous.
Right.
Like if,
Right. Okay.
like I'm doing the right thing here.
No Coca-Cola for me, please. I want fish.
That's
But eating fish is incredibly fraught when it comes to ethics and the way we fish our waters and things like that. That's like one of the great scandals.
Oh, no, that's true. Yes. Yes. Okay, I'll factor that in. To be fair, I'll factor that into my calculations as well this time.
Yeah.
My wife would eat fish for every meal. It's her favourite thing, and she never orders something other than fish when we go out. It's always the fish. She loves it. Yeah,
she's like
really,
the opposite of me.
Yes.
She's the yin to my yang.
That's right. And I'm the same. I rarely look at it and go, oh, geez, I wish I'd got that instead of my big juicy steak or something. So I'm not a big wrap on fish. I do like it if it's really well done. And there's a new beautiful big fish restaurant we went to the other night. We ordered a massive sort of, barramundi between us and really enjoyed it. And that was great. But I still think I would have enjoyed a steak more or something else. So I admire it. I feel righteous when I eat it because of the health factor, as in,
yes,
I'm eating something healthy now.
Yes.
But I would give fish a 6.8
for a total of 5.65. And on our all-time leaderboard, that ranks eating fish below Coca-Cola, but above the sport of basketball.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Basketball sucks.
All right. Next from me is a much beloved film. I've also got a film on my list, The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, wow. This is a toughie because this is like the most beloved film ever, I think, now.
Many people's favourite film.
Yes.
High on my list. Great film.
Yeah. Famously, the film we didn't see at the cinema because we went and saw Dumb and Dumber for the second time. But then we watched it. I remember watching it at your house on video later on. Great film. Yes. A film that was not overly celebrated at the time. It was nominated for Best Picture but didn't win, but has grown in estimation over the years.
Let me ask you this, right? Maybe this will make it easier to rate it. Why take points off it? What's not good about it? It's very long, but I never feel like it's too long. I never wish it was over. But other than its length, I mean, all the performances are good. Maybe the guy who plays the young, Elvis-like prisoner who comes later on, his acting performance maybe isn't quite as strong as the others. He's a bit of a weak link, but full of great acting performances. That doesn't do anything wrong.
No, it is a pretty flawless film, and I like that it's long because it means there's a length to him being in jail, so that's that sort of makes sense, and the story's taken seriously. It
has a sort of multiple endings, and the ending drags on, but they're all satisfying.
I'm not 100% satisfied by the ending.
Okay,
it doesn't totally do it for me.
Okay,
it drags a little bit, and then it doesn't totally explode for me. But
I'll tell you one point where the film drags for me.
Yeah.
When the old guy that has the pet bird gets let out of prison and can't handle it. It's necessary to the film, right? It's really necessary to the film because it then gives context to when Red gets out of prison and will he go down the same path, make the same mistakes or make the same decisions. So it's necessary, but at that point in the film I'm beginning to think, come on, crack on a bit.
Yeah. And I think for me, I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to do spoilers here or not. This is a bit difficult with some
Just do it.
younger listeners.
Spoilers coming.
I always think when Red gets out, what's he dilly-dallying about for? Why the hell doesn't he just go straight away? Like, it's like...
To the tree, yeah.
Yeah, just go. Like, why would you be, what should I do?
Well, it's because he has to skip parole. It's because he has to skip parole to do it, I think.
Oh.
Why doesn't he do it? I think he needs to sort of... At first, he's doing the right thing and doesn't want to skip parole, but then he thinks, they're not going to miss me if I skip parole.
Oh, okay. I've missed that element. So he's taking a risk at the end. I thought it was like, mate, you're out. What are you doing hanging around there
he
for?
says they're not going to... He says, they're not going to throw up any roadblocks for an old guy like me, so...
The other thing I'd say is, and that's due to this film, it's not the fault of this film though, the Morgan Freeman voiceover thing has become a bit of a cliche now. I don't think there could be another film where there's a Morgan Freeman voiceover, setting context. It's happened too many times.
There's been a few since, but yeah, with him doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I think but that wasn't a cliche at the time. It's become since. So it's a good film. I think it's a 10 out of 10 film. That ending notwithstanding, if I was writing a review of the film, I'd say, this is, I don't know what else you want to do with cinema than this. It talks about grace, talks about hope, talks about all sorts of wonderful, deep stuff. Everyone acts genuinely. Yeah, it's a good film. Why wouldn't you give it a 10? Are you going to give it a 10?
I'm not, but that's just because I always believe in leaving room for improvement, Other than Halley's Comet, I gave Halley's Comet a 10. But I'm going to give The Shawshank Redemption a 9.5 because you're right. Like for what it is, a film. There are probably only 5 films I like more, maybe, and out of the countless millions of films that get made. So what am I gonna? How can I give it lower?
I'll pull it back to a 9.7.
Really,
with that ending stuff. But I tell you, do you know how Haley's comment could be improved? Is if every time it came, it had a Morgan Freeman voiceover. Here it comes, folks.
What was it? Was it Deep Impact where he was the president when the comet or the asteroid or whatever hits the Earth? So he would be good for that.
All right, Australia. How do you rate Australia?
Oh my goodness. Oh, that is mean. Because I have a really complicated relationship with Australia now. Because I've lived away from it for so long. Part of me has more affection for it now. But part of me also has a lot of cultural cringe about Australia. Like, there's a lot of things about Australia and Australians I'm a little bit embarrassed about when I'm watching, television or movies or things happening in Australia. And when I come back, I feel it as well, like a little bit embarrassed when I watch the news and I'm like, oh, this is a bit embarrassing, this country. I also think it's like amazing, like, and it's home. So it's almost like you're saying rape my mum or something. Like, how do you do that?
That's next.
Part of me just thinks 10, amazing country, lots of natural beauty, great weather, lifestyle. But it's flawed. It's flawed. I can't give it 10 because it's flawed. That would be like, I'm not going to just be like patriotic or nationalistic about it. That's hard, man. Who would have thought that would be the really hard one?
I agree with your vexed nature. It's hard to know where to stand on it. It's a beautiful, old place. It's got wonderful natural beauties. There's a lovely nature about it, some of the culture of it, the relaxedness. It doesn't take itself too seriously. But then there's also a bit of jingoism about the nationalism I don't like around the flag and, that makes me cringeworthy as well. Its best feature is when it's unself-consciously itself. When it tries to talk about its Australianness and all that so much, it's awful.
You're right.
It's at its worst.
Australia is at its best when it doesn't try to be Australia. The people.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's gotten a little bit up its own ass.
And the capital cities are annoyingly far away from one another. Like, it feels normal until you're in the UK and you realise you can drive all over the place. Or even in America, you can drive a couple of hours between massive capital cities. In Australia, it's like a day's drive to get anywhere that's not the city you're in.
It's very. The cities and the people are very isolated from one another. It's the same conundrum I have when you told me to rate art. It's too big a thing to rate with too many facets going on for me to really do it justice. All I can do with Australia is kind of compare it to all the other countries in terms of where I'd like to be and spend time and how I feel when I'm in it. And Australia's really, really high on that list. I when I came back last year and spent time with you and my family and all that, it was just so great to be back. It felt really good. I miss it. I'm going to give Australia 8.
I was thinking about 8 too. Maybe that's a good sign. Oh, maybe there's some weird thing. So you start thinking about, from a natural beauty point of view, it rates very highly, but it's even still not that amazing. It's really, really beautiful in a unique way. But so is friggin' North America and
Australia is not the most beautiful country in the world. Most of it is quite rocky, flat, barren desert. It has a few, great beaches and a few nice rocks and a barrier reef. Australia is...
And the bluff.
Australia is not... Yeah. Australia is definitely not the beautiful country. What are you going to go for?
I'll sit on an 8 too. I was thinking an 8, and then you said it, and I think, that's about right.
All right. That's 2 8s for an average of 8, which does put Australia above the Big Rocking Horse, equal with the iPod.
It doesn't...
But below Netflix.
It doesn't...
You prefer Netflix to Australia.
That's terrible. I don't. That's
well, no, you do, because you gave Netflix an 8.5.
The thing about Netflix, though, is that I choose what I watch. You know what I mean? Whereas Australia's all there in front of me, and I have to put up with it. It's...
All right. All right, here's my next one. And this is also a little nod to your daughters. I thought they'd like this one too. Multicoloured pens. So I'm talking the 4-colour pen, the 10-colour pen. These are pens that, you can select between colours with little sliders on the side of the pen. Multicoloured pens, which I'm sure you've had a lot of experience buying.
Yes, indeed. Do you mean the ones with 10 or 12 colours, or the one with 4?
Or more. I'm thinking of the 4, because for me, the 4-colour pen, which I have one right here. Here's the sound of a 4-colour pen.
Oh,
that
I haven't heard
sound.
That for ages.
But I'm also including 10-colour pens, although they are harder to use because they're so fat. But they were like the ultimate Jedi weapon when you were at school. But just the concept of multicoloured pens. I'm thinking 4 and above, 4 colours and above.
All right, those big ones, the ones with 10 or 12 or 20 or 40 colours in them or whatever they've got, they're rubbish. I find them really annoying. I know that it's there's different colours, but they break off and the ink spills everywhere.
They're not very robust. No. Yeah.
It's it's something as big as a torpedo with a little match coming out the end of it. It's just that's not helpful.
But the Bic 4-colour pen, the classic that I love, that I still use to this day, they're indestructible. They're so hardy.
Yep. No, they're good. I'm a big fan of them. Used them for many, many years. Well, when I say I use them, I didn't use the green because no one ever uses the green.
The green is the
green's just along for the ride.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like you in the forward pocket in a game of football.
That's right. I have the green on a 4-colour.
You have the green of the 4-colour pen on the football field.
I'm trying to think, what circumstances do you pull out the green? You've got the red and the blue you're using, and then the black. On occasion. When do you need the green? You don't need the green. You're doing some really complex equations.
If you're drawing a picture of people playing sport and you need to do the grass.
Oh, if you're drawing a picture with a pen, yes, I guess so. But yeah, so look, I think that's a very useful pen. I don't use it anymore. But I endorse it still being available, and I would encourage youngsters to, if they haven't had one before, to go and get one and give it a whirl. Look, I would rate that pen. Look, it is only a Bic, though. I mean, they're pretty indestructible, but they're not. You do have to, they do tire the hand. It's not like it's a lovely flowing pen like the others that I buy now. So,
Please.
if you're gonna put them all together with the big fat torpedo one with the flimsy stuff, then it's going to bring it right down to a 6.
All right. I think the multicolored pen has incredible nostalgia going for it. It immediately takes me back to, happy times, school days, pencil cases and things like that. It's also useful, utility. I'm going to go 7.8.
All right.
Where does that put it?
Do you have one of
overall?
the multicolored ones?
I haven't got a 10 color pen because they're rubbish.
No. Yeah.
So that's an average of 6.9, putting multicolored pens just below KFC chips and just above eBay.
Woolen jumpers.
My grandmother made many woolen jumpers for me. She knitted woolen jumpers for me when I was young. She has now passed, so I feel like I can be a bit more honest and say, not a fan of woolen jumpers.
No.
Not a fan. Don't like them. Whether they're home knitted or machine knitted in the stores. I rarely wear them. I rarely buy them. Just don't like the feel of them on my body. Not a fan of woolen jumpers.
Itchy?
Yeah, just there's very little I like about them. 5.
Whoa. All right. Wow.
And that's being a little bit generous. Where do you stand on woolen jumpers?
I really love woolen jumpers. In fact, I've just got back into them in a big way.
Really? What do you mean you've gotten back into them?
Well, I went to a concert earlier in the year that was outdoor, and a friend of mine came along, and he had a woolen jumper with him sort of just round his waist in case it got cool. And he accidentally left it at our place afterwards because we met up at my place and went down. And so the next night, I was going back to the next night of the concert, and I was like, oh, that's a perfect, nice, light thing to carry. It's warm now, but later. And I ended up putting it on and went, oh, this is great. This is like light but comfy but warm. And I like they feel kind of earthy and stuff. So I looked at the brand and went online and just ordered one. And I've liked mine, gave him his back. And then I liked it so much, I bought it in like a couple more colours. And I've just been wearing them all the time. And I just feel like it's like I look out, so is it cold enough to put one on? They just feel homey and earthy and comfy and warm. And I'm getting into it in a big way.
When you see that friend now, do you have to call him in advance to make sure you're not both wearing the same jumper?
No, because in fact, this happened the other day. We were going out together and I hopped in the car and he had his on because that one was navy blue. And so I bought the navy blue, but then it got ruined in the wash. So thankfully I had also a yellow and a red one and a brown one that I had bought. And so I had the red one with me, which the red one's it's not great.
Is the yellow one the one you're wearing in your new profile picture?
Yes, it is. It's like a mustard. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Nice. And what are you giving woolen jumpers out of 10?
I'm giving woolen jumpers a 9 out of 10.
Whoa. Nice.
Yep.
That takes the average all the way up to 7.
I would love a homemade one. I'd love mum to knit one now, or I'd love I just think they're fantastic with patches and colours and stuff. Big fan of jumpers. I'm lamenting the fact that in Australia we're coming out of winter now into summer, and I won't be able to wear one for a while.
Well, come over to England. You're about to have all your restrictions lifted. Come over to England to do some recording, and you can wear a jumper in England.
Oh, nice. I'll bring them all. I'll bring a special bag just with jumpers.
All right. 2 more from each of us. At the time of recording, we are coming up to Halloween. My wife came home the other day from a pumpkin farm with a whole bunch of pumpkins. She likes carving pumpkins for Halloween. Where do you stand on pumpkins?
Oh, I thought you were going to say Halloween. Mm-hmm. Ooh. I'm pretty indifferent to pumpkins. I like pumpkin soup. And I like if there are multiple soups on a menu, I'll often choose the pumpkin. I like it that much. But then I won't want it again for another month or so. I also love it as part of a roast. So roast pumpkin's great, but anything roasted is pretty awesome, isn't it? Nice and sort of crisp on the outside, but soft and
bit of honey drizzled over it when you roast it. Yeah, nice.
But apart from that, I'm not a fan of them, the jack-o'-lantern kind of look, the honey, that sort of thing. It's like, oh yeah, that's a novelty, but it's not part of my childhood or memories or anything like that. It's sort of all American. If I went shopping for stuff thinking, oh, I'll cook tonight, I wouldn't, it must get a pumpkin. It doesn't come to mind. So I'm going to be a 5 on a pumpkin.
I mean, I will have pumpkin soup if it's, got enough salt in it. Pumpkin soup's all right. I'm not a big fan of pumpkin to eat. Don't particularly like the taste. Don't even particularly like roasted pumpkin. But I take my hat off to the pumpkin because it's so recognisable. It's such a distinctive thing, like in our culture. There's not much else that looks like it. It's it's really carved out a real niche for itself. I think it's, you've got to respect the pumpkin. Everyone knows it. It's pretty cool looking.
It's fun to say.
It's distinctive. It's a great word. It's a great word, pumpkin. I think you've been harsh on it. I think even though it's not my taste and it's not for me, I'm going to give the pumpkin 6.6. 6.6.
I quite like the Smashing Pumpkins, which is a great name for a band, isn't it?
It is a good name.
Well, we've done food, and so I didn't want to do... I've got 2 more that are food. Oh, here's another one. All right, here we go. The 90s. How do you rate the 90s?
I think when it's all said and done, the 90s will be our decade. for you and me.
Yeah.
Like that, the 90s is what just defined us culturally, like in most ways. Like it's not the era probably of our greatest success or most significant achievements, but when it comes to like nostalgia and memories and all that good stuff,
stuff that really matters.
Yeah, I think like the 90s, it's like, your first love or your high school sweetheart or something like that. The 90s is like it for us. And also it was quite like, I know lots of bad stuff happen, but bad stuff happens in every decade. But like, there was no pandemic. There were some wars, but, and that's not good. But generally it was quite a good decade. I'm going. I like them. I'm giving the 90s a 9. What about you?
Very appropriate.
Yeah. The 1990s. Where do you stand on the 90s?
I like the 90s. I love 90s music is still my favourite music. And because it's that era, it's coming of age, it does define that stuff a little bit for us. Politically, it's interesting.
I'm changing my score.
Oh, hello.
I'm giving the 90s 9.0, 9.210. 9.0210. Yeah,
very appropriate.
Yeah. 90210.
Even though in retrospect lots of things are better, like TVs are better and the access, something like Netflix is better. In the 90s you're still sort of, oh, well, is that movie on this Sunday night? Okay, we'll wait. That had its own charm and all that kind of stuff to it too. Mobile phones were pretty crap, but also it was great that there were no mobile phones as well at concerts and things. Yeah. And blissful, Like,
can you imagine what high school would have been like for us if there were mobile phones everywhere and smartphones? And social media.
Photos would still be around. Yes.
Yeah, imagine if social media was around when we were at school. No.
Hell. No. That's true.
We would have been beating the babes off with a stick.
Things look pretty crap, like computers. Like you look back and think how slow they were and all that kind of stuff. But at the time, it felt exciting to get a new one all the time, like it does now.
Of course, stuff's more modern now. But you don't look at the pyramids and go, "Oh man, they suck because they haven't got Wi-Fi." Like they're from their time,
Hello to anyone who's walking around the pyramids listening to us, by the way. Who's obviously got Wi-Fi. If they're listening to the podcast. I think there were some bad suits in the 90s. There's some dodgy fashion. But there was also cargo pants, which are, heaps comfy. So that's great. There's a theory that says the 90s really began when the wall came down in Berlin in 1989 and went through to kind of 9/11 in 2001. And I think, you know what I mean? That's like a socio-political moment in time that sort of brackets it well. I rate the 90s pretty highly. I can't give them a 10 because because of my love life in the night.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him a 9.9.
Oh, that's high. Wow. Okay, that's very high. Last one from me. This was already on my list, so I'm going to keep it, although it's close to what you said. You said eating fish before. I want a mark out of 10 for the act of fishing or angling. Some people's favourite pastime, other people hate it. Fishing, angling.
That's a really good one. I used to do lots of that when I was a kid. Me and Dad, we went fishing lots. I quite enjoyed it, but I always think I didn't catch enough fish as a kid to get me hooked for life. There was lots of standing around waiting, and I got bored. I've had rods for years. I haven't used them very much. Been fishing a little bit with the kids, not very much. They really loved it. We probably should do it more because they really enjoy it. And we've done a little bit on holidays and things, but I'm not a massive fan. I have got a bit of a secret desire to learn how to fly fish. I think that looks really interesting and has it's not like put it in the water and wait for ages. It's, you're actively doing something and it feels strategic and fun. But I can't say that it's a pastime that I love or do often or at all, really. So I guess I'd give it probably about a 5.5.
I don't want to upset all the fisher people out there, but I don't rate it. I haven't done much of it. I've only ever actually caught one fish that I can remember. I'm not going to say it's boring because everyone finds different things boring and interesting, and I can see how you would enjoy it, the pastime. But I think it's kind of mean to the fish. And look, I eat meat, right? And I eat fish. So I'm not going to get on a high horse and be all, animal welfare here because that would be disingenuous of me. I don't know, like just catching them for sport. To me it's like hunting. A lot of people don't like hunting. I think it's hunting, but hunting for fish. And I think that's kind of mean, just doing it for the fun of it. And I know people throw them back, but they only throw them back after they've put a hook in their mouth and stuff. And also, they're kind of like, this sounds silly too, but they're kind of tricking the fish and deceiving it. And I think that's kind of mean. I think it's a bit mean dangling something in front of a fish saying, here's something nice, and then saying, just kidding, here's a huge piece of metal hook in your mouth. And a traumatic moment. And then other people say, well, fish are really dumb and it doesn't really matter because fish aren't highly intelligent. Well, then I think that makes us even worse for tricking them and hunting them and catching them, this poor dumb animal living in the sea. Like, that just makes us even worse. So, I don't know, it just feels a bit like the times I've done it when I'm doing it with people. Like, I'm not getting on a high horse here. I'm not saying fishing shouldn't be allowed. Of course I'm not saying that. But just when I'm doing it, I feel a little bit uncomfortable. It feels a bit like, I'm not sure I like this. I'm not sure I like what we're doing to the fish. I get there's like a skill to it and an art, and I like the idea of different bits of equipment. I can see how that is quite appealing, and tackle, and I like I can see how the technical side of it could be quite appealing. And I don't begrudge other people, I guess, getting satisfaction from it, but it just doesn't quite sit right with me. I'm not judging. I'm just saying it's not for me. Fishing gets a 3.7.
Wow.
If you don't like what I just said about fishing, feel free to send an email to Tim.
What about all that giraffing you go doing in Africa?
What's the last one? Last one on your list.
I'm going to go with neckties.
Neckties.
Wearing a tie. We talked last time wearing a tie with my jacket because I'd been out that day. Yes, what do you think about neckties?
Are you including bow ties in this, or...?
No, just neckties.
Just long, normal neckties.
You can do a sidebar comment about bow ties if you wish, but...
I haven't had time to think about this and formulate this because this is the first time I've thought about it. But I think I'm going to be down on neckties. Not only do I just not like wearing them very much, the feeling of them, and I used to wear them a lot for work in my newspaper days, so I have spent a lot of time wearing them, but I virtually never wear them now.
I think they're rubbish. I can't stand neckties. When I was young, I used to have a few and felt sophisticated to wear them and all the rest of it. And I too spent years at work with them on, even, like just at Foodland even, and different workplaces like that. And then for formal occasions, I only have 2 ties and one of them's the sort of quite a different kind of tie, you know, like a knitted sort of tie to be a bit different. But I loathe wearing them, and they look ridiculous, and they never sit straight.
Do you wear them when you officiate at weddings and funerals?
Yes, that's the only time. And that's just simply out of respect because it's expected.
Will you ask, do you want me to wear a tie, or will you just do it by default? Or will you say it's an option?
With the funeral, I just turn up wearing a tie because that's just expected. And I'm not going to ask for fashion advice of a family, you know, whose funeral I'm about to perform.
Yeah.
I just know that's expected. With a wedding, I always ask the bride, what would you like me to wear? Just in case they have a preference, you know, of a colour or something like that. I just want to fit in with their photos. It's their show, so I just wear what they want me to wear.
Yeah. What would you do if you said that to a bride that you were doing a wedding for, say, on the weekend, and she asked you to shave your beard off?
I'm sorry, could you shave your beard? I would say why, but if she said, I just like it better without the beard, I would just shave it off. Absolutely.
Would you?
Yeah, that would be. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't. Look, a week out from a wedding, I'm not going to cause any more stress or pressure or anything, I'll say. Absolutely, I'm happy to do that, and I'd do it. And then I'd just grow it back, yeah. It's really funny when you watch like a film from the Elizabethan sort of era, and you see men in, you know, big puffy wigs and their clothing over the top and all these sorts of different... You really realise, oh yes, this is wearing a necktie, a coloured bit of, you know, irrelevant strip of stuff down the front of your...
Yeah.
It's just a hangover. It just feels like one more frilly little bit of irrelevance that is culturally accepted. And when you look at it logically, like, why is that... I can see the purpose of a jacket. You can put it on, it keeps you warm. It's, you know, a jacket makes sense. And then think, oh, hang on, let's hang this purposeless, colourful thing down the middle that costs $50. Like, it just looks like, why? That looks ridiculous.
Yeah. I agree. Down with neckties, I say.
I have to say, they are handy though. Like, if you don't want to wear them anymore, like, keep them. They're actually really handy, like to tie things in the garden, like stakes and stuff like that, and things around the home. But I'm not a fan of them. And if people, you know, like, of course I'll wear it on the right occasion, like I said, generally for others, because I'm not going to be the guy who turns up, you know, and says, well, I'm not wearing a tie. But I hate having to do it up. I know how to do a Windsor knot. I hate having to pressure the top button in nice and tight and all that sort of stuff, and measure the distance and stand before, you know, all that stuff.
I remember one tie I had for a long time, because one of my favourite cartoon characters was the Roadrunner. I used to have a Roadrunner necktie, and I wore that to work a few times. Back when wearing like Looney Tunes and Warner Brothers ties was a bit trendy back in the 90s.
Oh,
it's a bit embarrassing now.
Yes, okay. Take 1 more point off my 90s score, yes.
What are we going to give neckties out of 10?
I can't think of a good reason for them. So there's tradition.
Yeah, they're a traditional thing. You can get nice ones sometimes made of nice fabric that look nice.
If you wear a suit, like a proper suit, without one, you do look a little bit like you're up for parole and, you know.
Right, yeah.
I'm going to give them a 2.
All right. I was going to give them a 3.
Of course, we wore one every day at school as well.
Yeah, we did. We wore ties to school. Yeah, forgot about that. Yeah.
Did you do your tie every morning, or did you just loosen it and slip it over your head?
Loosened it and redid it. Because I had all that, sorry, not to brag, man, but because I had all those, you know, badges and things for being school captain and prefect and everything on mine. Like, you know, there was a lot of metal to take on and off the tie every day. My honours.
Well, you're like a soldier or someone in the Navy having to wear their full whites every day.
Yeah. Like
pins and sidebar.
Like Prince Charles turning up to a
saber.
wedding. Yeah. So if I had to undo it every day, they would have all got. You can't do the knots and that with all the little badges and things on the tie. So I would just loosen it so they could all just stay in the same place.
Thankfully, I wore my swimming medal quite separately to my tie every day. So
That is it. I hope everyone's been going through and keeping their own scores and comparing them to ours. But we are done. 10 things. Did you do your dare from the girls?
I did do my dare. Yes, it was,
Okay.
but I sort of backed off on it a little bit. The dare was that I had to say I'm giving it a 10. Like just to one of them, I'm giving it a 10. I did do that with my beard.
No. Okay.
But then
no,
I went
that's
a little
dare
bit more
achieved.
distance.
And which was the object suggested by one of the girls? I'm curious.
One we didn't do.
Quick, let's do it. Quick bonus one. What is it?
Boysenberry ice cream.
Oh, nice. I like boysenberry ice cream. It's not one I would normally pick, but I do like it. Boysenberry ice cream is a solid 7.5.
Boysenberry is my favourite ice cream, and I get that and rum and raisin or every time. So it's a 10 from me. It's a 10.
It's a 10.
You can't improve boysenberry ice cream. It's of all the ice creams.
Then I'm giving it a 7.1 just to drag the score down a little bit. All right, so here's what we did today with their scores, and I will just do today's additions to the list. If you want to see the full list from both episodes all mixed together, go to our website. From the bottom up, neckties get a 2.5. Fishing, angling, the pastime gets a 4.6. Eating fish gets a 5.65. Ooh, downer on fish today, Tim. Pumpkins, 5.8. CocaCola, 6. Tim's beard, 6.5. Multicoloured pens, 6.9. Woolen jumpers, 7. Catch Me If You Can, the movie, 7.15. The planet Mercury, 7.45. Corn on the Cob, 7.8. Belly buttons, 7.8. Art, 7.9. Australia, 8. The iPod, 8. Netflix, 8.25. Boysenberry ice cream, 8.55. Rain, 8.8. Paris, a 9. The 1990s, 9.4605. And The Shawshank Redemption, 9.6.
Does anything feel weirdly out of place there?
I feel strange that Paris is above Australia, but I guess Australia's so big it has a lot of stuff to drag it down a bit. And I wouldn't give France more than Australia.
No.
I don't know.
Mercury feels too anonymous to me to be up that high, but...
Netflix and the iPod are a bit high for my liking, but...
Yeah, I think so too. Netflix does annoy me a lot. Like there are other streaming services that are better. Like the Australian SBS one I think is kind of better in a way. You know, like, so, but I was thinking about from the perspective of childhood.
What can you do? We've spoken.
Ugh.
Thanks everyone for listening to another out of 10 episode. Many of you asked for it. I hope it was worth the wait. Let us know what you give this episode out of 10. We'd be curious to hear.
Do you know what also gets a 10? Sleep. Sleep gets a 10.
I'm going to think some more about that. The few minutes when you know you're about to go to sleep definitely gets a 10. Sleep itself. Sleep itself. No, sleep can't get a 10 because you can miss things when you're asleep.
Oh, yeah.
Good things. You can miss like the Super Bowl, and also you can have nightmares.